Today on Hebrew Grammar Help, Pu'al verbs. Shalom, shalom. I'm Sapir and welcome back to Hebrew Grammar Help. Today I am talking about Binyan Pu'al, the regular conjugations. So Gizrat Ha-shlemim. This is the first of two binyanim that are strictly passive binyanim. So Pu'al verbs are always 100% of the time the passive of a PL verb. And so because they are always a passive verb, there are a couple of forms that they don't have. They don't have the Shem Po'al, which is the infinitive, the to form. They don't have a Shem Pe'ula, which is the verbal noun, and they don't have imperative forms. There's no way to tell somebody to, have something done to them. Now, this is the place where I always say you don't need to have seen any other verb videos, any other binyan videos to understand this one. And it's true, but I really do hope this is not the first one you decide to go with, because Pu'al verbs, my own Ulpan, which has 7 teaching levels, does not teach Pu'al until level 7. It is one of the absolute very last grammar points that we learn. This is not one that you're going to see as often as all of the others. This Pu'al binyan is much more common in writing. We see it much more in articles, possibly in books. It's just not so common in speech. So basically what I'm going to do is show you the templates for present tense, past tense, and future tense. And that's going to show you, and each template is going to have 3 boxes that are like empty spaces where the shoresh letters fit in. And normally I start with infinitive, but what did I just say? There is no infinitive for Pu'al. So we are just going to start with the present tense. Before I get started with the present tense, I want to explain that all 3 tenses have an oo sound. And technically that oo sound is written with a kubutz, which is the 3 dots in a diagonal line under the letter. But in modern Hebrew, because we don't write with nikud, if we were to just leave that nekuda out, if we were just to leave the vowels out, most of the Pu'al verbs would look exactly like a PL verb, or like other words altogether. And so I'm writing them here with a shuluk. And of course, that's not normal to write it with a shuluk with a dot next to the vav, because that's a nekuda, that's part of the nikud system. But that's how I'm going to write them. This is part of writing with Ktiv Maleh. I feel like it's going to help you know what you're looking for, or remember to write it correctly when you do go and write it without nikud. When we write without nikud in modern Hebrew, we always put a vav right after that first shoresh letter. Alright, so let's get started. We've got, in present tense, we always have 4 forms. We've got masculine singular, feminine singular, masculine plural, and feminine plural. And basically, the masculine singular is the basic form. So they all 4 of them, start with a mem with a schwa. And then they get the 3 shoresh letters. But of course, after the first one, we're going to put a vav that's going to be like a shuluk, making the oo sound. Then in the second shoresh letter. For modern speakers, all we need to know is that that's a dagesh. So if there is a bet, a kaf, or a pei in this position, it's gonna have the hard stopped sound, b, k, and p, rather than the fricative sound, v, ch, or f. For people who are a little bit more sticklers about the nikud, or are interested in biblical Hebrew, the fact that it's a doubling dagesh tells you that any letter that is in this position is going to get that dagesh, except if it's an ot kornit, if it's a guttural letter. So remember, the guttural letters are aleph, hey, chet, ayin, and resh. So those 5 letters are the only ones that are not going to get this doubling dagesh if you're writing with nikud. So that second shoresh letter gets that doubling dagesh, and then it also gets a kamatz. And then we've got the third shoresh letter. And if we're at the masculine singular, that third shoresh letter does not get any vowel underneath it, and we're done. In the plural forms, remember the plural ending is im. For the masculine, we get a hirig underneath that third shoresh letter, and then a yud and a mem sofit. For the plural feminine, nothing goes underneath that last shoresh letter, but we get a cholam maleh, which is a vav with the dot way up high, and then a taf at the end, sounding like ot. And then lastly, we've got the feminine singular, and like the others, it starts with a mem with a schwa. Then we get the first letter with an u sound, however you want to write it. And then that second letter, it has its dagesh, and it has a segol. And then the last shoresh letter also has a segol underneath it, and then we have a taf at the very end. So those are the 4 templates for present tense. So the sample shoresh that I'm going to use for all of these templates is bet, tet, lamed, which has to do with canceling. Now we're going to stick our shoresh letters in there, bet, tet, and lamed, and we're going to hear how it sounds. So we have mevutal, mevutelet, mevutalim, mevutalot. So what these all mean is, for masculine singular, it can mean I am canceled, you are canceled, or it can mean he is canceled. The feminine singular, I am canceled, you are canceled, she is canceled. And then for the plural forms, they can be we are canceled, y'all are canceled, or they are canceled. And of course, you're going to want the ending to match the gender of the group. All right, that's present tense. Now let's talk about the past tense. Past tense actually has 9 forms. I always write these 2 in the bottom right. It's just, I write these as 2, but they're always the exact same form. I just don't know how to merge those 2 cells in a table in PowerPoint. If anybody knows how to do it, definitely let me know in the comments. So just like with PL, Pu'al drops that mem in the past tense. That mem really only is for present tense. So in the past tense, remember that the past tense third person, this is going to help you try to remember all of the forms. You can start with the past tense third person singular. It's going to have the same vowel pattern as the name of the shoresh. This is always true. This is how they named the shoreshi. So the shoresh is pu'al, and so the third person singular, so the third person singular past tense is going to have that pu'a vowel pattern. So you're your third person singular masculine is going to have the 3 shoresh letters. The first one is going to have a hardening dagesh. And now remember, the hardening dagesh is only on the begad kafat letters. Bet, gimel, dalid, kaf, pei, taf. If you're writing with nikud, none of the other letters will get this dagesh. If you are not writing with nikud and you're speaking modern Hebrew, you just need to remember, it's pretty easy to remember because it's basically a rule throughout all of Hebrew that the first letter of a word for these 3 letters that change their sound, bet, kaf, and pei, that when they're at the beginning of the word, they always have that hardening dagesh. So they always have their hard stop sound rather than their fricative sound. So they're all gonna start out with these first 3 shoresh letters. That first shoresh letter is gonna have that hardening dagesh, and then it's gonna have that oo sound. So again, if you're writing traditionally, it's gonna be a kukutz, the 3 diagonal dots underneath. But if you are writing modern Hebrew, you're gonna write it with a shuvuk, and so it's gonna show up like a vav after that first letter. So what I just said applies to all of the forms. All right, then we've got the second shoresh letter, and it too is going to have that doubling dagesh, just like it did in the present tense. So remember the doubling dagesh, this goes for all of the letters except the otiot kroniot. And so again, we're gonna say everything with its hard stop sound. All right, so up till now, everything I've said applies to all of the forms. But from here on out, we have to separate out third person singular feminine and third person plural, because they're a little bit different because they have a stressed suffix. So for all of the other forms, that second shoresh letter is going to have a patach under it, sounding like ah, and then we're going to have the third shoresh letter. That third shoresh letter, if you're doing third person singular masculine, you're now done. You don't put any vowel under that third shoresh letter. For the rest of the first person and the second person, you're going to put a schwa underneath because that third shoresh letter does not have any vowel sound. And then you're going to add the suffix that matches the subject of the verb. And like I said, for the third person singular feminine and the third person plural, it's a little different because they both have a stressed suffix. So for the third person singular feminine, on that second shoresh letter, we have instead a schwa. And then that third shoresh letter gets a kamatz, and then we put a hey after it. And for the third person plural, again, the second shoresh letter gets a schwa, and then the third shoresh letter has a shuruk after it. So it sounds like ooh. All right, so let's put in our bet, tet, and lamed to say that all these things were canceled. We're going to run through this, and it's going to be butalti, butalta, butalt, butal, butla, butalnu, butaltem, butalten, and butlu. All right, the last verb tense is the future tense. Remember, all of the future tenses have a prefix, and then some of the future tenses also have a suffix, but not all of them. This one's a little bit difficult because I always say, oh, just remember that the vowel pattern is going to match the infinitive, but we don't have an infinitive with this one. So I'm just going to put these templates up here. And what are we going to notice? We notice that all of the first letters, which are the personal prefixes, they all have a schwa under them. Te something, ye something, ne something, except for the very first one, the first person singular, which is an aleph. And it's because you can't really have an aleph with a schwa. Aleph has no sound, schwa has no sound. And so you can't have a letter and a vowel with both of them with no sound. All right, so whenever a template kind of calls for an aleph to have a schwa on it, instead it usually gets a chataf patach, and that is the case here. So we're gonna have our prefix, then we're gonna have our first shoresh letter. It is not gonna have any kind of a dagesh in it. It's gonna have an u vowel, so traditionally the kibbutz, or modern the shuluk. And then we're gonna have the second shoresh letter with the doubling dagesh. And that's what they all have in common. Now for the verb forms that do not have a suffix, that second shoresh letter is also going to have a patach. And then we're going to have the last shoresh letter just sitting there on its own with no vowel under it at all. Alright, so now for the forms that have a suffix, what's going to happen is that second shoresh letter is going to get a schwa. So it does reduce when we're talking about future tense. It doesn't reduce in the present, but it does reduce in the future. Then that third shoresh letter is going to get the whatever vowel is appropriate for the form. So for second person singular feminine, it's an e suffix, and so there's a chirik under that third shoresh letter. And for the second person plural and the third person plural, they're gonna have an u, which is a shuluk, right after the third shoresh letter. So let's put our favorite shoresh in there, bet, tet, lamed. And we're gonna have avutal, tevutal, tevutli, yevutal, tevutal, nevutal, tevutlu, yevutlu. This means I will be canceled, you will be canceled, he will be canceled, she will be canceled, we will be canceled, y'all will be canceled, or they will be canceled. Alright, and that's it. No need to talk about Shem Peula or the imperative forms, because there basically are not. I mean, how do you tell somebody, be canceled? It's not, it doesn't make sense linguistically. Alright, so that's it for today. Now you know all of the regular conjugations of Pu'al verbs. And next time I'm going to do Huf'al verbs, and then you're going to know all of the regular conjugations. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave it in the comments. And hit like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want to see more. See you next time.